Hey everyone, welcome to the Mighty Books Podcast, where we sit down and chat with mighty authors about their books, message, writing successes, struggles, and other relevant authorship topics. I'm your host, Ryan M. Oliver, author of the Beasts of Men and Gods series. Now let's get started on today's chat. This week's featured author is Larry Fowler. Award-winning author D.L. Fowler, also known as the Lincoln Guy, transports readers into his characters' inner worlds. His best-selling work, Lincoln Raw, a biographical novel, imagines Lincoln's perception of the world in which he came of age. Lincoln Raw is curated in the Lincoln Collection of the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library. When not crafting his own stories, Fowler shares techniques for leveraging psychology and language to embed readers in vicarious, visceral experiences. After graduating from the University of Southern California with a BA in Humanities, he served as a linguist in the U.S. Air Force. Later, he pursued a career in finance and now lives with his wife in Gig Harbor, Washington. Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, we have the Lincoln Guy, Larry Fowler. Larry, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So we're here to talk about your book, or in this case, your books. What is the title of at least one of your books?
Well, the one that's most popular appears to be Lincoln Raw.
Okay. What can you go into what that is about? Obviously, Abraham Lincoln, but what in particular?
It covers Lincoln's life before he becomes president, and it's unique among Lincoln books because it's the only one that really attempts to get into his head and present his life, his perspective on life, the events and the people around him, and what growing up was like, and what he learned and what was important to him and how his values evolved. It's the only book that's ever approached it from his point of view rather than, from a historian's point of view. And of course, his point of view is going to be biased.
Well, obviously, anything that's someone taking on their own perspective, it's going to be there's going to be an obvious bias that way. But that's really cool. What inspired you to research and write about Lincoln?
I was always taken by Lincoln, but as a Boy Scout, we used to have special days for Lincoln's birthday and a parade and the whole business. And so I was always intrigued by him. Growing up in the South, I also was keenly aware of the Civil War because we were always taught in school that the South never lost, that it was just a publicity stunt on the part of General Grant that he tricked Lee into handing over his sword one day. So yes, it was really interesting. But the most important thing, the reason I started writing about him was his depression. I wanted to understand how I wanted to know, first of all, where it came from. And then I wanted to know, well, how did he manage it in order to become the president of the United States and probably the most consequential president of the United States ever?
So your research must be pretty extensive then. If you're trying to, take information and develop a dialogue and like a psyche and put it into a book.
Yes, I first of all, I had to know all of the events and all of the people. And I had to know what his interactions with them were. And then I had to understand his personality. And the timing of how it developed. In other words, he wasn't always the man sitting on the granite throne in Washington. He was a different person as he was evolving and growing up. So I had to understand, that timeline. I had to understand then how he would, if he had told the story, how would he have done it? I mean, what would he have said? How would he have interpreted the conversation he might have had with a superintendent of public instruction for the state of Illinois when he was in the state legislature?
Right.
How would those things have gone from his perspective? And I had to watch carefully for clues in the record that we had that would point to his reactions. I also had to understand his personality. One of the things I came to realize, and I put this on the back cover of the book, Lincoln Raw, he was the soul of a poet and the son of a farmer. And that is a conflict all in itself, and it's the story of who he was. So that was the perspective that I ventured into. I tried to get into that head and tell his story from his point of view.
So I'm sure there's quite a bit of journaling, of his own journaling, that was available for you, or is it mostly in third person?
Well, first of all, he did not do any journaling.
Oh, okay.
The book is in first person, and what I did was I took all of the stories that other people told about him, and I turned them around and told him as I imagined he would have told them, with the same facts, the same circumstances, but how would he have recorded that had it been him?
Okay.
Because of the different perspective, the book is in the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library.
Wow, that's impressive. That's very impressive. Congratulations on that. That must have been quite a shock. Did someone come and approach you for that, or did you submit it? Or
Oh yes, they contacted me and said they would like a copy of it for their Lincoln collection.
that's awesome. That is really impressive. Now, during this all this research, was it just you who researched, or did you have like other Lincoln aficionados who you kind of talked with and bounced ideas off of? Was this all from you and your research?
Well, I did interview people, and I read extensively other authors who wrote biographies, who wrote accounts of the Civil War and Lincoln and his generals, Lincoln and the Indians. How let's see, Lincoln's melancholy and how depression fueled his greatness. There was a book written by Senator Paul Simon from Illinois about Lincoln's early life. And then there was another book written about the Cooper Union speech. But those are just some of the examples. There was a collection of interviews that his law partner did after he died. Billy Herndon, his law partner, spent 10 years, talking to over 100 people who knew Lincoln at different points in his life and recorded those stories.
So you really could, from all that encounters and all that, those testimonials, really could kind of, for lack of a better word, get inside his head.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's that was my goal.
Yeah. Oh, that is incredible. What a feat to actually, to recreate someone who really never journaled on their own and write a whole novel about from his perspective. That's impressive.
And it only took me 10 years.
Only 10 years. That's not bad.
Yeah.
I was about to ask that, how long it took you to do that. It's 10 years. But I mean, now you've done the legwork, and I'm sure you could do it again if you really wanted to. But you have other works involving Lincoln, yes?
Right. Yes, I do. The one that's out most recently is called The Turn. The Turn is a story about Lincoln and his friendship with his valet, William Henry Johnson. We know only a handful of facts about Johnson that were recorded by historians. And I don't know if there's a relationship or not, but I mean, little was recorded and the man is black. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it is a fact. And what intrigued me about this story was that Lincoln changed his views on race and his policies with regard to race in terms of voting rights, in terms of black serving in the military during the war, and no one's ever come up with an explanation for what triggered those changes. He wasn't the kind of a person who cared much about popular opinion. He knew it was important, but he was more concerned about what was right and what was wrong. I mean, one of his great lines in one of his speeches was about instead of might makes right, right makes might. That's a bit of his perspective on things. So I mapped out the things that we knew about that relationship, the events that were recorded, and I looked at the timing of the changes in Lincoln's policies, and the correlation was really interesting. It was uncanny almost. That there had to have been conversations going on between the two men, on those issues, because Johnson was the first person to see him in the morning. He was the last person to see him at night. He was essentially, we would think of him as Lincoln's shadow because he was with Lincoln all the time. But one of my, actually the person who did my cover design for the book, The Turn, She suggested that Johnson wasn't Lincoln's shadow; he was Lincoln's mirror. And I thought harder about it, and I said, "Well, yes, probably, but he was also Lincoln's window into the Black experience of that day."
Mm-hmm.
And he was always at his side.
Well, that's a very interesting perspective. That it does make you wonder, as you know, as a man living during that time, what would make him change his policies, or at least lean more towards the uh, abolishing slavery, and if he has interaction with a black man and has a personal close relationship with it, working and personal, I would make complete sense as to why he would lean that way.
Yeah, and I think one thing I want to clarify too is that Lincoln was anti-slavery from very early in his life, from his teenage years. He was anti-slavery. There is a story that he said to one of his cousins that he was going to knock it in the head the first chance that he got. So it wasn't a matter of getting rid of slavery. It was a matter of how to and when, and then what did you do with these people when they were free? Those were the points on which his views changed. He went into the White House believing that freed slaves should be shipped offshore for their own good, and he tried to do that. It didn't work out, but in the meantime, he learned that in general that the Black population, the enslaved population, was much more competent than he ever knew, and much more dedicated to their own freedom.
Well, I think the going theory, the going mindset back then was that the slaves were not intelligent and couldn't handle their own stuff. They were actually being enslaved for their own good anyway. But we all know that's not the case. Those who were enslaved were just as intelligent as those who were the slavers. It's just the fact that they were under the thumb.
Right, and under the gun too.
And under the gun, yes.
Yeah, many people don't realize that one of the great motivators for the Second Amendment back at the beginning, when it was installed, was to allow the southern states to manage their own militias and to arm their own militias. And the militias in the South were used largely for putting down slave rebellions and hunting down runaway slaves. And there was in many of the states, if not all of them, I know in several of them, especially along the Atlantic seaboard, service in the militia was a requirement. You had to be in the militia. It wasn't you got to own a gun, you had to carry a gun, and in most of those cases, if you're a white man, and in most of those cases, by the way, the men did not own their guns. The plantation owner owned the guns. So a lot of those people who were in the militia were in the rank and file were as much under the thumb of the plantation owners as the slaves were.
So he was a high moral fiber kind of guy. Yep. He knew this slavery was not the way to go, and just the when and the where to fix this was the main I guess point or mission for him.
Exactly right. And that was the shift. And the thing that brings out about Lincoln, and you go back and you look at more and more issues that he was engaged with over his life, he was a great learner. A lot of people consider him to be a man who was resolute, and he was, and who had a goal fixed in mind, and he accomplished it. It took Lincoln a long time, often, to come to the point of resolution. And then if he saw that he was wrong, if he learned that he was wrong, he would change. He was always looking for new information. It's one of the things that just people don't quite grasp is that, the leading the country through the Civil War was a monumental thing, of course, but he was the only person to ever sit in that chair that held a patent.
Really?
And he started the Department of Agriculture because he thought that farmers needed to embrace technology to excel and to prosper. And there are other examples too. I mean, Lincoln, you can throw a dart at a map of colleges, and odds are you're going to hit one that he started with the land grant college program.
Wow.
And we have several of them here in Washington State University, for example. What people don't even realize is that some of the Big Ten schools were land grant colleges, all funded by the federal government with the land and money, seed money, and that happened under his administration. And there were a number of other things. The idea of the ironclad boat, the armored boats, that was something that he championed. He championed the repeater rifle. Not that he invented these things, but I mean, when he saw them, he said, "Hey, this is cool. You know, I like stuff like this." It was almost like having Steve Jobs as your president in some respect.
Yeah, he was a humanitarian and an inventor, or not inventor, I guess, but
yes, he was
an inventor and at heart.
Yeah,
he
right.
He wanted to progress the nation.
But he did actually invent something that he got a patent for.
Well, so what did he invent then?
Ballast system for shallow hulled riverboats.
No way.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they use ballast systems on everything nowadays, on lots of things nowadays.
Yes. So anyway, so the turn is that story about Lincoln applying these aspects of his personality to unravel a knot that had been tied around the nation's throat since its beginning. And that is, how do we free slaves, and what do we do with them afterwards, and how do we integrate them into society? Because they are competent. They are highly competent. And many of them were highly creative in terms of technology. That was what he was about. The one thing I am proud about, by the way, about the story, one of the many things, is that I'm working with a producer in Hollywood now to develop a feature film. And speaking of technology, the producer recently won an award, very prestigious award. She was preceded as a recipient of this award by the likes of George Lucas and Jerry Lewis and James Cameron.
Wow.
And she's the first woman to have received what's called the Nikola Tesla Award for advancing technology in filmmaking. And this is a project that she loves and is determined to do.
That's impressive. Incredible. So what's as it develops, I'm hoping you'll give us more information.
I will. Yeah. The spot where we're at right now is that the investor, everything has been pretty well figured out. The business plan, detailed business plan, the line item budget, even the names of the investors. It's just the investors haven't, agreed on who gets what, when, and where, and put it down on paper.
Wow. What a feat. What a feat. You should be very proud of yourself.
I'm just still trying to I'm pinching myself to see how real it is.
Maybe you'll wake up in a rocking chair thinking about it. That's awesome. So I'm assuming you've had some decent feedback then, if people are talking about making a feature film about it.
Yes, I mean the Turn in particular, it doesn't have a lot of reviews on Amazon or in Goodreads, but all of them are 5-star reviews, and they're not cousins or siblings or mom or dad or anything like that. So I'm really proud of that. I mean, I spend a lot of time out in public at book signing events, and I have people come up to me all the time telling me how much they love the 2 books. Or I love Lincoln Raw. I'm starting on the Turn now, and it's really, and I'm really enjoying it. So I've gotten a lot of great feedback from it on it.
Wonderful.
No death threats.
Oh, that's always a good thing. So, are there any other books in the future after the Turn that you're
yes. I'm deep into another book, also out of the Lincoln genre, and it's called Lincoln's Angel. It's the story of Rebecca Pomeroy, an Army nurse who came into the Lincoln household after Willie died, their 11-year-old son, while they were in the White House. She's a remarkable woman in her own right. There are only There's a sort of a biographical piece on her. I call it sort of because it wasn't very academic. But it was almost like a memoir that somebody wrote for her. But it's almost a PR piece. But it does have facts about her experience during the Civil War years. And I also was, and this is a long story, but how I got my hands on it. But I'm glad that I did. There's a journal that she kept, a Nurse Pomeroy kept, while she was an Army nurse, which included time that she was with the Lincoln in residence at the in the White House with the Lincolns. And so Lincoln said to her, first of all, he said of her, he said, she is the best friend I have known. And then he said to her, he said, Mrs. Pomeroy, when you become an old woman, tell your grandchildren, please, that the nation owes you a great debt, holding up my hands in time of trouble.
Wow.
And she came to Lincoln's side when not just when he was going through this great personal tragedy, but also when the Union was on the cusp of losing the war. Had she not been there, had he succumbed to his depression at that point, then we would have a very different history as a nation than we have. This is her biographical novel. It's a story of her life. It starts when she's 14 years old. It shows her development and her personality development and how tragedy, just like Lincoln's tragedies formed him, how tragedies and trauma formed her. And when that time came, there was likely no other human being on earth who was better equipped to come alongside him and his wife and shepherd them through those darkest days.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like an incredible story.
So I have her journal, and then I have a daily log of Lincoln's comings and goings while he was president. And so I've merged all three of these pieces together now into an outline, and I'm halfway finished. And I'm attacking. I'll start attacking the probably the next couple of days, attacking the second half.
Holy cow, you're moving right along there. So at the end of the day, what do you hope people will get from your books or learn from your books?
I think that what I hope that we will learn is what true leadership is. And I've always sensed that there's kind of a divide in our culture, and we're probably not unique. It probably exists in other cultures as well. But this divide between the people who want someone to get behind the wheel and drive the truck, straight through the gates, and not even worrying about the fact that there's a lock on the gates, And then the other half of the people want someone who's going to want to collaborate, going to build people up and get the most production out of each individual so that we as a collective are greater than the sum of our parts. Those two camps, I guess you call them, I think are basically a product of differences in personalities, and so what I'm really hoping for is that we might understand that humility is a better measure of a person for leadership than is bravado, than swagger. That learning is a vital part of leadership. Changing is a vital part of leadership. Honoring people is a vital part of leadership. But so is attention to detail, and so is when you come to a decision, you work diligently to implement it, and then you make mid-course corrections if they're necessary. That's the kind of thing I hope we'll come to, is understanding that real leaders are humble people, they're learning people, and they're honoring people.
I 100% agree with that. And is that the kind of leadership style you want to, embody with the Greater Gig Harbor Literary Society?
It is, yes, right, yes. I could do everything on my own, and so far I've done a lot of work because we're just building that. But my goal is that the day will come when, that there will be people that I could truly say to them because of their we have a common vision. They are competent. They are not just competent, but they're creative, and they're self starters. And we could just I could just say to them what I like to say in a group that I lead, that I'm here to do two things. I'm here to stand out of your way, and I'm here to help when called upon.
Yeah, that's about what it is. It's not just about pushing people to get things done. It's about elevating them to teaching them to do it on their own. Catch the fish as it is.
Right. Yes, exactly right. That's my leadership style. Always has been.
I like it. I like it. I would hope to embody something similar to that as well, if anything leadership-esque that I tackle. So for those who do not know what the Greater Gig Harbor Literary Society is, can you explain what this group does?
Yes, we're a nonprofit registered with the IRS in the state of Washington, and our intention is to build community around written and spoken word. So, and to do that, specifically, what we try to do is host or participate in events that are centered around the literary arts. Where we bring authors and readers, and people who enjoy literary arts together in whatever way we can. So far, most of that has been putting up a 10 by 20 tent, at a festival, and inviting authors to come in and helping, share costs and so forth, so that people can actually see that we're here and discover us, and have conversations with us. And this worked out, very well.
Yeah.
We were at you were there. I think you were at Gig Harbor. Yes, that weekend. Yeah, right. Well, the car show. Yeah, the car show. Well, that was one of the events that we do. I did a car show we didn't have very many authors there, but in Port Orchard the week after that. A couple of weeks before you were at the car, we were together at the car show in Gig Harbor. We did the Gig Harbor Arts Festival, Summer Arts Festival. We had, I think it was 18 or 19 authors spread out through 30 feet of canopy and the Timberland Bank's front porch, and we had a ball. People were just devouring books and conversation with us. We probably were the most popular thing there. I had people tell me, I had my head down, working the whole time, but I had people tell me that they would walk the concourse there, the whole length of Judson Street, and that all of the action was right in front of our tent.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing we're doing. We started with, we're going to try to have a deal at Barbecue to You in mid-November, modeled after the Icelandic tradition of giving books as gifts at holiday time. So it'll be kind of a gift wrapping time where people can bring books that they bought previously, or they can buy them from authors that are there from the local community. It would be nice if we could put together a catalog of books by local authors. But we're looking for, we have to find some leadership for that project. We may eventually do our own book fair, maybe as early as next year sometime in 2023. But those are just some ideas, some types of things that we do. The big one that right now our biggest project is a poetry festival that we received funding from Creative Endeavor grants of the City of Gig Harbor Arts Commission.
Wow.
That's October 9th at Ocean 5 in the afternoon. I think it's from 1 to 5 o'clock. And it's going to be a huge community poetry workshop.
Wow.
Where we all learn about writing poetry, but the purpose of it is not only for poets. It's for people who love poetry to come and experience that process. But also, I think as a novelist, that one of the best things I can do in honing my skills is to practice poetry, because writing poetry forces you to focus on imagery, creating that imagery with the fewest possible words, but not just words, but also breaking it down into the sounds in the words and the size of the words and the patterns of the words, so that you can create almost like the film world does these the background music that
Oh, okay.
so yeah, you watch any TV program or see any film, there's always this background music that's played, the musical score in the background, which basically tells you how you're supposed to feel. Okay, you can do the same thing with the word selection.
That iambic pentameter.
One of the things, for instance, there's an author that I really love. He teaches creative writing at Pierce College, but he wrote a book that I just fell in love with. But he had an opening scene that was in a marsh in the bayou of Louisiana, and he used words like swoosh. I mean, and when you say swoosh, you're not just telling someone that the wind was blowing through the rushes. You were actually giving them that experience of being in the middle of the rushes when the wind's blowing. And then there was the dipping of the beak by a heron. The heron's dipping a beak. Well, you not only are being told the information that the heron is fishing, but you actually see it happen in front of you as an image. And so those are things that you can best accomplish in terms of practicing through poetry, whether you ever publish a poem or not.
Yeah, that was something I got into when I was in middle school, was poetry writing, all because of a teacher who decided, hey, we're going to do this poetry thing. Of course, everyone's groaning about poetry, like, those are for Shakespearean people. And, a lot of, we're all like 14, 13, getting this thing. Actually, might have been even younger. But I learned that it was a lot of fun. Actually, to kind of develop, and it was very challenging. Like you said, you have a small structure to meet, and then you make it fit and you make it work. And that challenge is you can ruminate on a word or a phrase for a day, 2 days, if you were really stuck on it. And then finally you come up with the word you need and you're like, oh, there it is. Or you take something out completely, you reformat, restructure. By the time you're done, you had something that flowed very nicely.
Yeah, and that's something that unfortunately a lot of independent authors haven't been schooled in. Importance of taking that at least one pass in your manuscript, and then studying the words you've chosen and choosing them intentionally to create images, to make sounds, to emulate smells or taste or whatever. The words you choose. And by the way, one of the great masters at that happens to be someone that we've talked about already that I write about, Abraham Lincoln. The Gettysburg Address was a poem, and he intentionally used certain sounds within the lines and a certain cadence, and at different points in the speech. And then there was the conclusions to both of his inaugural addresses are beautiful poetry. But he had this well, he was a poet. He spent his life reading and writing, studying poetry.
That's so cool. I love the events the Literary Society is doing. That's really astonishing. It's really nice to see. It's refreshing to see.
And if people want to help us out, by the way, if you want to help us out, just go to our website. Well, first, if you want to follow what's going on, go to our website, which is gigharborlit.org. Okay. And then you'll find also, if you want to help out, you'll find an obscure little button up on the top menu that says support, and send us money.
Yep. Money definitely drives the machine.
Yes, right. I'm getting to the point where my bank account is getting a little bit stretched here.
I can only imagine with how many different events you're doing. But it was really cool to see when we were at the car show.
Yeah.
There was 6 of us.
Yes, 6 of us, right?
Yeah, 6 of us. It was a good time. It was great for just A, for networking, B, to kind of see who everybody was, see how it worked out.
Yes.
It was nice and it was relaxing. It was a beautiful day for Washington State. You really couldn't go any better than days like that. I mean, even we didn't get a obnoxious amount of sales, but we still got some out there. We still got to talk to people, and then getting there and just getting out there and chit chatting with people, in my mind, is the best way to get the word out about your own works, and then obviously society too, and just pushing that, hey, literacy is a good thing. Literacy is fun. Join us and enjoy educating yourself on well-read, I guess. And
yes, right, yeah, and find books. I mean, it's a lot more fun to find books when you're talking to somebody in person than it is when you're sitting in front of your computer sifting through the 25 million on Amazon.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I know many people bought mine just because they knew me.
Yes.
And a lot of them were like, I would never have picked up this genre because it's just not their go-to.
Yes.
But numerous were like, actually, this was one of the more fun ones they enjoyed. They were glad they branched out a little bit. And through doing this podcast, I can say honestly, I have read, oh gosh, a good dozen that I would never have picked up if I didn't know the person or had talked to them about it. And I'm glad I was able to experience their writing and their story. And this is a great way of doing it.
And that just clicked with me. What I should do is that I should go to our edit our website a little bit and have some links to your podcasts.
That would be absolutely incredible. I'm looking forward to actually interviewing several from the Gig Harbor Literary Society. I think I've already hit up a couple.
Yes, you have.
So, and I've got you, who's the front runner here, spearheading the way, get everything done. So anything I love partnering with people to make some waves, and get out there and have fun and teach people. I'm a teacher by trade, or one of the trades. So, I love that kind of stuff. So I would love that kind of assistance for the podcast. And I know others who come on here would love that kind of, spotlight on their work too.
Yes. Well, let's just make it happen.
I like it.
Send me what I need.
Okay. We'll make that happen. All right. I'll slam my gavel down. We'll make that official. So, do you have any suggestions for budding writers looking to publish their own work?
Yes, I do. I think the first thing I would like to say is, number one, is it's work. Okay,
Yes,
it's work. But it reminds me a little bit of a story I heard about Larry Bird, the basketball player for the Boston Celtics, and the story goes that he walked out of the conference room where he signed his first contract, laughing. And he said to a friend out in the lobby, he said, shoot, he said, they're going to pay me. I would have done it for free.
Yeah, that's pretty much, I mean, when you're writing a book, that's pretty much what you're planning on doing. You have to do the legwork.
But that doesn't mean it's not work.
No, it's all
just
work.
Work you enjoy doing, right?
Yes.
Right. So that's the first thing. The second thing I'll say is that, understand that the muse works for you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't work for the muse. Okay. And when the muse has, provided all his or her input, all their input, okay, just tell them to take a rest. And because from that point on, it's no longer the muse's story. And just like that, budding authors should understand that once you put that thing out in print, or you put it into the ebook and let it go online, that it's actually, more precisely, when a reader takes custody of that book, in whatever form they take custody of it, it's no longer yours, it's theirs. And as a result, you need to honor that. Mm-hmm. So when you get a review, you only have one job when you get a review, and that is to learn from it.
Yes.
That is to learn. You don't defend yourself. You don't argue with it. You don't Well, you can go ahead and celebrate if it's a good one, but I mean, but don't celebrate too long because there's something to learn from it, you know.
Yep.
But that's, I mean, and so that goes probably the bigger package of make a commitment that you're never going to stop learning about the craft of writing.
Yep.
Because whatever you think you know, you don't know.
Yeah. All we know is that we don't know.
Yes, that's the best. That is the best policy.
Mhm.
That's right. Yes, all I know is that I don't know. Right. Yes. That's my best advice for a budding author. Right?
That's great. So I want to know real quick, just because a couple fun questions. What's an interesting writing quirk you got?
An interesting writing quirk I have.
Yeah.
You know, okay, I know I probably said something a little different, and you can prompt me if we've talked about this before. But you know, I know one thing is that I was always under the impression that you had to write the first draft all the way through and not edit a word up, you know, until you finished, and then you go back and you edit it. And then I was reading something about Kurt Vonnegut, who was an iconic science fiction writer. And science fiction isn't my genre, but I enjoy his writing. But Kurt Vonnegut said, you know, he said of this that philosophy, he said there are people who just kind of they just swoosh through, you know, they just swoosh through the whole process. He said, but then there are those who just kind of bang one word at a time. And he said that his writing process was, I write one sentence until I get it perfect. And then I write the next sentence until it's perfect. And then I write the next sentence until it's perfect. And I like that because that's the way I write.
Mm-hmm.
But I carry it one step farther. When I get finished with all those perfect sentences, I go back and make them more perfect.
Oh my goodness. That is definitely not my way as much. I try to get through the story, trying to get it on paper, lay that foundation, and then when I go and edit it, that's when I dive deep into the crux of it all, and it can get a little overwhelming.
Yes, I know, right? But
yeah.
that's why I call it my quirk, because I wouldn't advise it for most people.
Right. If that's how you, and I've always preached, if that's how it works for you, just do it. Just do it. Because if it works for you, you know how to handle it. You know your ins and outs. You know it's got flaws. You know it's great. Just do it.
Yes, right.
Yeah, tailor it to you.
That's my quirk.
I love that. That's a good quirk. That's a good quirk. A unique quirk. That's definitely one I have not heard before. I like it.
Well, Kurt Vonnegut let me come out of the closet on
that. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Let's see. Literary success. You are already doing some great stuff with, your books coming out, great feedback. You even got a, feature film looks like it's coming out. I know you talked about doing some audiobook stuff, which is awesome. But what does literary success at the end of the day look like to you?
Well, success to me looks like that people begin to feed my message back to me.
Okay.
That readers begin to feed my message back to me. In other words, they get it because I write everything with a purpose. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I could say in terms of success.
That's a very good way to bring it. Just kind of a roundabout, everything comes back to you. That energy comes back to you. The message comes back to you. I really like that. So I think we'll wrap up here in the next couple minutes, but are there any upcoming events or news that you want to announce for yourself, for the Gig Harbor Literary Society, to our listeners at all?
Well, I would just say go to the Literary Society website and register because we need registrations to have a head count because we're serving food for the Poetry Festival, October 9th from 1 to 5 at Ocean 5. Just go on gigharborlit.org and just it's a free registration. Just do a free registration. Keep going back to the site to see what kind of things we're doing. That will change. I can also announce on a personal level that I have signed just recently, an audiobook producer and narrator for The Turn. His name is Steve Carlson. He's a veteran actor, Hollywood actor who's co-starred or starred in 10 different feature films.
Wow.
He was a regular in 3 TV series before he retired. He's done 120 plus audiobooks, and one of his recent ones reached #1 audiobook sale on Amazon. So,
Whoa.
so I'm really excited about that. He's going to start probably in November, and we should have it wrapped up by late March.
Holy cow. Well, that is also really exciting news. That is
Yeah,
super
I'm
exciting.
thrilled. Right? Yes.
Yeah, you're just rolling. I like it. You're snowballing, getting bigger. This is great.
Well, I don't consider myself a success yet, but I will say this: that I know that when I get to be a success, it will at least have been a 15-year success, overnight success.
Yeah, I feel
Maybe
that.
20-year overnight success. But I know I'm going to be an overnight success. Eventually.
Yeah, I love how they're like, oh, it's overnight. It's like, well, it took 20 something years, but yeah, overnight, sure, wink, wink. Once I put all the legwork in. Well, that's really exciting. I'm very happy for you, and I look forward to more future updates on your books and audiobooks and a feature film, which is incredible. So for our listeners who are getting excited about this just as much as I am, where can they go get a copy of your books?
Okay. The easiest place to go get a copy of my books is dlfowler.com. That's my website. You can purchase anything that I've done through there. There's even links to the ebooks, and audiobooks, which you actually wind up going elsewhere to buy, though I'm working at getting all of that independent. In other words, on my platform. For instance, I have already arranged to have next year to have Lincoln Raw, the audiobook that is now through Audible, will continue to be through Audible, but it will no longer be exclusive there, which means that I will be able to sell it directly on my website. The Turn will be that way from the very get-go. It'll be on Audible and iTunes and other places, but I will also have it be on non-exclusive distribution, which means I can even hand out a CD if I wanted to.
Well, cool.
But yeah, go to my website. If you would rather go to a local bookstore, they can order my book because it's distributed through Ingram.
Mhm.
They can order any of my books that way. And last and least, you can go to Amazon.
Yeah. Yes. Go directly to his website. I highly recommend. Or you know what? Come out to the events and
Yes.
chit chat with him. I think that was when we were at the car show. We had umpteen people come and just, if they hadn't already purchased the books, they were buying one there, and they were getting all sorts of little Lincoln lessons while we were standing there, and it was fascinating. It's just fun to come and interact with the authors, and so what better way to do it than in person, right?
Right, exactly right. That's the best way to buy a book.
Well, Larry, this was really fun. I'm really glad you took some time out of your busy schedule to meet with me and converse. I really had a good time. This is a very engaging conversation, and I am really glad we got to meet and talk. And I'm looking forward to more conversations with you in the future.
I'm looking to the same for the same, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this. So thank you much.
My absolute pleasure. All right, for everyone listening at home or wherever you'd like to listen to the Mighty Books podcast, thank you again and have a great day.
Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.